Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Casual Talk MMA. I'm Fight Night Kelvin. This is Michael.
What's going on?
How's it going, y'all? Here to talk about another edition of great fights. So last weekend, Michael, Gaethje versus Cowboy.
Great fight.
Yeah, pretty good card. Let's just start top to bottom. Yeah, let's talk about Gaethje versus Cowboy.
Let's do it.
So I think that we, for once, nailed it. We kind of had an idea of how this fight would go.
Yeah, that fight basically played out the way you were saying it was going to play out. He literally ran over him.
Yeah.
Like, to put words on how his performance was, I tweeted on our account, he looked stronger, faster, more vicious, just all over Cowboy.
Yeah, I mean, the power is still there, obviously. Yeah. Something that's really impressive to me about Justin Gaethje, though, is he seems to be fighting a lot smarter.
Yes, I've noticed that, too, because there's two fights he was just throwing it.
Yeah.
Like throwing hands.
Yeah.
Right? This particular fight looked more different than I've seen him before.
Yeah.
So it's a good sign for him.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's been thrown out there before that he fights kind of reckless is the word that people have thrown out there because we've talked about it over and over again. We say that he just moves forward. He takes a punch and he throws it back.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's getting away from that completely, but he doesn't seem to be as reckless anymore. He seems to be slightly more calculated, but he's still sticking to his style, still moving forward, still throwing damage. It's crazy, man. I mean, this is exactly how the fight was going to play out, in my opinion. I just didn't know if it was going to happen in the first or the second, but yeah, man, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, what do you think Gaethje goes from here now? Because he called out. Well, I don't think he called out Conor. He threw like a little
backhanded shot.
Yeah, but he mainly wants to win in between Tony and Khabib. So,
yeah.
What do you think? Does he deserve to get that next shot? Do you think the Poirier fight is maybe his next opponent?
Yeah. So I'll address the Poirier one first because it's the freshest one in my memory. Somebody asked him about that recently, and originally when Dustin said that he would give him his rematch, I liked it. I'd watch that fight again. But Justin brought up a good point. He said. Because if Dustin and Justin fight again, right, and the winner of that fight is obviously that much closer to a title shot. So Justin said that Dustin already got his shot. So he'll give him his rematch, but after Justin gets his own crack at the title, which is fair in my opinion. A lot of people out there are just saying, of course he doesn't want to fight Dustin again. He doesn't want to lose again. But if you watch that fight, it was a close fight. It could have gone either way. So yeah. I don't really think that's the case. So let's put it this way then. If Conor is really out of the picture, then yes, absolutely. I think that Justin is more than deserving of the next title shot. The only problem is that we probably get Tony versus Khabib sometime in December.
Well, at least we hope so.
Yeah. Which means that then Justin wouldn't get his title shot until like March, April of next year. And I don't know if he wants to sit out that long, right?
Right.
And I don't know really who makes sense to fight in the meantime.
Yeah.
So if we finally get Tony versus Khabib again, and Conor's still around, then that's the fight that makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. Because the winner of that fight
between Gaethje and Conor?
Yeah. The winner of that fight should be probably next.
Yeah. I see it. So I feel like Conor's going to come back. Like he's made a couple posts like teasing his return on the 14th, which is the last pay-per-view before the year ends. So I think he is going to come back. I think he's been training and he's been teasing his comeback. As far as who he fights, I don't know. I think for him, it'd be smart to either fight Gaethje or Poirier.
For Conor?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think those are the two fights for him because I know he's been clamoring for a Khabib fight. I don't think he's going to get it right away.
Right.
So I think the likelihood of him getting the Gaethje or Poirier fight seems to make more sense for him and for the UFC.
Yeah, if it's going to come down to Conor fighting either Dustin or Justin, personally, I'd rather see him fight Justin.
Yeah. Me too.
But I mean, I'd love to see.
That's still a tough fight for him going against Justin Gaethje.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he reminds me kind of like Nate Diaz, where he doesn't easily go down. Like he just takes shots. He's like a zombie basically.
Yeah, that's a dangerous.
He eats shots, and you know, I can't remember the last time he's fought someone like Justin Gaethje, other than maybe Nate Diaz, where the amount of damage he takes doesn't seem to fold him.
Right.
And that'd be a tough fight for Conor because if that fight goes a distance, then we know he runs into issues as far as his cardio.
Right. As far as like a fighting style goes, and that's weird that I'm making this comparison. I'm sure I'm gonna get lambasted for this, but it just came to me right now. The only fighter that like throws leg kicks and combinations the way that the Justin Gaethje does is Jose Aldo, who unfortunately we never really got to see them fight because Conor starts.
Yeah,
13 seconds.
yeah,
So
that was crazy.
tough. I mean, if we had seen that fight play out, then maybe it would inform how the fight with Justin goes.
Yeah,
Of course, Justin's a much bigger guy, but yeah, man, I think that's a tough fight for Conor.
yeah,
I'd love to see it. I mean, if we get if in a perfect world, right? If I can ask Santa Claus as an MMA fan for the perfect thing, we get Tony versus Khabib and Justin versus Conor
on the same card.
Ooh, that'd be hell yeah, that'd be great.
Ooh.
One thing though about Dublin, Conor said December 14th, Dublin or whatever, right? I don't think that can happen because they've already got that's for 235, right? They
Yeah.
or 245, sorry. They've already got that booked for Las Vegas.
Yeah,
And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're like contractually obligated to have like a certain amount of events in Las Vegas.
right.
And typically the last fight of the year is in Vegas.
When I saw that tweet, was it a tweet or Instagram post? It was a tweet, right?
Yeah.
When I saw that tweet, I didn't take it as him saying he's gonna fight in Dublin. I took it more as him saying, "Hey, Dublin, like his hometown, I'm coming back on the 14th."
Oh,
That's how I interpreted that tweet.
okay.
Because obviously, when he put the 14th, I was like, "Well, that don't make sense. The 14th is
Vegas.
the Vegas card."
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, what if he's maybe letting his people know in Dublin, "Hey, I'm gonna be fighting on the 14th. Come travel with me," or
Never even considered
like he
that.
always mentions, right?
Right.
How they always travel with him.
Yeah.
So maybe he put that date out for
Right.
people to maybe make arrangements to expect him to come back.
Right. So that's what's next for Justin, probably, right? What about Cowboy?
I feel bad for Cowboy. That's
Yeah.
a two fight losses in the row.
Yeah.
In the row. I don't know, man. I didn't see it last night from what I saw before.
Okay.
Like
so
the Tony fight and this fight, completely different.
I'm about to start
fights
some
for him.
controversy. You ready?
Okay.
So the reason I mean, if we go back to last week's episode, the way I said it, I mean, I said this is not a good fight for Cowboy, right? Because I knew he was going to get really damaged.
Right.
The reason I had that prediction, or the reason I had that mindset, is because just from the eye test, it seems like Cowboy is starting to wither.
That's what I saw too.
You know?
Yeah.
And the reason I say because some people have hinted at it, and every time someone's hinted at it, they've gotten destroyed on Twitter. But it's just what's
I didn't
apparent,
see it.
you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying some people are saying that he's done, right? I'm not saying that he's done. Just a couple months ago, he was fighting amazingly at 155. So I'm not necessarily saying that he's done, but for sure, I think like fighting like a kickboxer, fighting all of the time,
Okay.
and all of the wars that he's been in, how many fights he's got in, and his age, it's starting to take a toll on him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he just doesn't look as sturdy. He doesn't look. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's just on the tail end of his career, in my opinion, and it's kind of a bummer because he's expressing the desire to continue this pace, continue fighting at this pace, continue fighting the top guys. And he even said, I mean, I think his exact words were, "I'm going to get the belt. It's going to happen," right? Which to me implies that he's willing to fight as many times necessary to make that happen. And I just don't see how that ends the way that he wants it to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of killers at 155.
Well, there's still good fights for him, I feel like. I just feel like that particular fight was a bad matchup for him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done yet. I still think there's more fuel in the tank, but that fight I did see those signs, like not even the same level as Justin Gaethje.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess.
So it could be the victim of just a bad matchup.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get that signal with the Ferguson fight.
That's true. And if we go back to the Ferguson fight, which was not that long ago,
no,
he looked good in the first
round. He did look good.
Yeah,
He looked really good.
Right.
Maybe it was just a victim of a bad fight for him.
Yeah.
As far as that, Justin Gaethje was way better than him in all aspects.
Right.
And he looked the part that night.
So I guess here's where the trouble is.
Because what if he fights Paul Felder?
Yeah,
I like that
that's a good
fight. I like that
That's
fight
a
for
really
both
good fight.
guys.
Yeah.
And then maybe he shows a better effort,
Yeah.
right? And then, maybe that takes away those questions. I don't know.
I was going to say that him and Paul Felder are good buddies, but he's good buddies with Justin Gaethje too.
That's true, and they fought too.
And Paul Felder likes Edson Barboza, so both of those guys.
They were really good friends. Like, they were cool throughout the whole night. Like, if you watch the Embedded series, those two were really cool with each other. But, it's a fight game at the end of the day.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess it depends on what exactly his goals are and what he wants to do for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Because if he's serious, if he's that confident that he's going to get another title shot and that he's going to win it, in my opinion, he's starting to – oh, my God. I almost don't want to say it, but he's starting to sound like BJ Penn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it just depends. If you're at that age and he's already gotten beat by Tony and he's already gotten beat by Conor, right? 2 of the top 4 guys.
You mean Justin?
Justin, that's what I meant. What did I say?
Conor.
Yeah, that's
I was like, Conor has a fight yet, bro.
Then at that point, you have to wonder how much of his career is left, right?
Yeah.
But if he's okay with just sticking around and taking fights that are fun or
right,
like for example, if he wants to follow in the footsteps of like Andrei Arlovsky, for example, who's fighting a lot.
Yeah.
Dude, he's in his late 30s, Andrei Arlovsky, and he's fighting consistently.
Yeah.
But he's just fighting to fight. He's fighting to take fun fights or whatever.
Yeah.
If that's what he wants to do, then I agree, because Paul Felder would be a good fight.
Yep.
He already fought Iaquinta, but if Dan Hooker wins that fight, that'd be a fun fight. Him versus Dan Hooker. So I mean, I guess it just depends on what the fans want out of him and what he wants out of the rest of his career.
Yeah, I don't see Cowboy winning a belt.
No, I don't.
There's just way too much talent in that division.
Yeah.
And he's a victim of bad time, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like right now, that division is so stacked with Khabib and Tony and Poirier and Justin Gaethje and Conor. Like, there's just so much good talent that I think are far above him right now.
Yeah.
That he's a victim to it, and that would be the reason why I don't see him in the belt.
Right.
If he was on a division that wasn't so stacked, then I think he had a good shot.
Right.
And win the title. But I think he's at that point of his career where there's just better guys than him.
I just had this fight makes no sense at all, but it just appeared to me like a vision of if Max Holloway ever went back up to 155, Cowboy versus Max Holloway.
I don't know.
That'd be an interesting fight.
It would be an interesting fight, but it wouldn't be the first fight that would pop in my head for Max to take in lightweight.
No, of course not. Yeah, I know. That's what I said. I mean, it doesn't make any
Max
sense
is like at the peak of his prime right now.
Yeah.
And like, I would love to see him fight the best fighters in that division.
Not to mention, we've all established that.
And we saw it with him and Poirier. Yeah.
Not to mention that we've established that Cowboy doesn't really deal well with pressure. And Max pressures like a motherfucker. So. All right, so that's the main event.
Well, let's talk about Gaethje. Did we talk? I mean, as far as what he should do next, did we really dive into that?
Yeah, I mean,
like finalize that.
Yeah, I mean, we agreed, right, that it's either title shot or Conor.
Even though I think he like said he didn't want to fight Conor.
Yeah, but I don't. Think
but you don't believe him?
I don't believe him.
Okay.
No, that's totally a shot at Conor to get Conor fired up and want him to come back.
I think a lot of people. You know what? Let me ask you this question. So, like lately, we've seen so many people bash Conor, but yet we still see fighters call him out.
Okay.
Does it get annoying to you that like after each fight you expect this guy's gonna call out Conor? Like because when I was about to watch that post fight interview, I was thinking, dude, don't mention Conor. Like, you obviously don't like him. Right. He's I don't think he's the type of guy, like, he's gonna pick his fights, right? He's at that point in his career.
Yeah.
Quit mentioning Conor.
I'm glad that you're right. That is true that they're mentioning Conor.
Yeah.
But somebody, man, I wish I could give you a shout out. We'll tag him in the video.
Okay.
So somebody made a video recently. It was brilliant, and it shows like over the course of like the last 12 months, it shows several fighters call out Conor directly. Right. Like, I want to fight Conor. And then the second half of the video is like the same fighters and some other fighters, and they ask him, and they're all like uninterested. Like Tyron Woodley, for example, called out Conor. There's he included in the video. Somebody asked him, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "No, I don't want to fight Conor anymore." And then they put Tony after he beat. It must have been when he beat Anthony Pettis, I want to say.
Yeah.
When he was like, "Let's go McNuggets," whatever, blah blah. And then a couple months later, they asked Tony, and he's like, "Don't talk to me about Conor. He's irrelevant." And then they showed a video of Khabib talking about like, no, this is easiest fight in lightweight division or whatever.
Right.
And then they showed Khabib again, and he's like, I don't want to fight Conor.
Right.
And then they showed Justin, and he's like, I want to fight Conor. And then they showed the video of him going, he's retired. I don't want to fight him. So
can you put the blame on those guys? Like, why you're still keeping Conor in the news, because Conor hasn't really said anything other than his interview. Like for the past year, other than that interview, he's been quiet.
Yeah.
He hasn't really said anything publicly.
No, the only thing
other than what Dana has been saying from his phone calls.
The only person that he's really been calling out is Khabib. Recently.
Right. Or he'll analyze a fight after a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Like he's done lately.
Right.
You know? But I think like all these fighters that keep calling him out, you're putting them back in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So can you really blame them or?
Well, let me point something out here real quick. So I don't think they're calling him out, but they are mentioning him, right? Which is...
Well, they're mentioning him for a fight.
Yeah.
To me, that's calling him out.
Okay. That's fair. But, I mean, I can't blame them, right? Because everybody still wants to fight Conor. That means the money fight. I don't know if people are playing coy, if people are just trying to, like, get the better of Conor or trying to...
Or maybe build themselves up, maybe get some recognition from them.
Trying to get Conor riled up so that he wants to come back and fight, but...
I'll tell you right now, if you're calling out Conor, that's not going to be a reason why Conor's going to fight you.
The only person that it makes... I mean, I understand Conor doesn't want anything but the rematch, which is really obnoxious.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think it makes sense for him to fight anybody else right now other than Justin.
Justin or Poirier.
Or Poirier.
I think those are two fights for him.
Or Poirier, yeah.
That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Before, I didn't think Justin.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I said that was because I wanted to wait until the outcome of this past weekend.
Okay.
Now that we know what happened, I think it makes sense between those two fighters.
Yeah. Even the reason I favor Justin over Dustin, though, is for two reasons. One, which is not that great, which is that we've already seen him fight Dustin. And it's not that great because it was a couple years ago and it was a different weight class.
Mm-hmm.
But the main reason why I favor Justin over Dustin is because Dustin's coming off a loss and Justin's coming off a win. Justin's on a fight streak of 3 straight first-round finishes. Yeah. That's exciting. I want to see that happen.
Yeah. Well, either guy, I'd be happy.
Yeah, same, for sure.
It wouldn't matter to me. Either guy. So, yeah, I guess that will wrap that one up.
All right, so in another edition of I Got It Completely Wrong, Glover Teixeira versus Nikita Krylov.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I picked Krylov, man, I feel so bad. I'm sure somebody's going to clip me saying some stupid shit about Glover being on his way out or whatever.
Yeah.
I say that, and then the guy comes out and says that he's willing to fight until he's 50.
Yeah.
And that he wants another top 5 guy.
Yeah.
And he looked great.
He did.
And something that I didn't consider, honestly, is that he's on a 3-fight win streak.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think 3 straight finishes too. No. This wasn't a finish.
Yeah.
He's coming off 2 finishes before this. And Nikita Krylov is a good dude who's shown that he's still worthy of being in the UFC and he's still worthy of being ranked.
Yeah.
So my apologies to Glover Teixeira. He put on a great performance.
Yeah.
I mean, Nikita did too. He got beat by a veteran, a better guy. And I still want to see Nikita fight. I still think he's got a good future. But, man, I got this one wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Good for Glover. That was exciting. It was fun to see him do so well.
Yeah, I wonder where he's at in the rankings right now.
Who, Glover?
Yeah. I wonder if that bumped him up as far as the rankings. I'm sure it did if he was ranked at all.
I think he was ranked higher than Nikita, though. So I don't know how much that did.
No, actually, he's still at number 9. So he's just below, or he's below Volkan, and he's above Johnny Walker.
Okay.
So he's at number 9.
All right. So
what else?
Yeah, as far as like what's next for either fighter, not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really have a strong opinion on that. So Todd Duffy versus Jeff Hughes.
Yeah, I saw that fight.
So going into this fight, really excited, right? Todd Duffy coming off a 4-year layoff, but the dude has never he's never gone to a decision, similar to Nikita Krylov.
Yeah.
Just recently, he created a little bit of some controversy because he called himself the most exciting heavyweight in the UFC, and a lot of people, understandably so, kind of destroyed him for that. But my argument was that his fighting style, I mean, he's not completely wrong, and he came out and proved it. He came out. Well, hang on a minute, right? We'll get to
for the first minute, yeah.
Yeah. So he came out the way that I would want to see him. He came off after a 4-year layoff and came in there and went right at it. It was kind of crazy to see a heavyweight throw like that.
Yeah.
And even DC mentioned that. He's like, for heavyweights to be throwing like this is nuts.
Yeah.
It was almost, dare I say, reminiscent of like Cain, prime Cain Velasquez. But man, this was exciting. They were both throwing. They were both landing. There was some interesting clinch work against the cage. It looked for a second like Jeff Hughes was going to finish the fight. So credit to Jeff Hughes for staying in there and like landing back too. I mean, there was a point where he had him up against the cage and he's swinging and landing, and Jeff Hughes is covering up, and I got like almost I got like flashbacks of like Chuck Congo versus Pat Barry, where Pat Barry had Chuck Congo hurt up against the cage and out of nowhere countered him and hurt him right back. That's what happened.
That's what I thought was gonna happen because he was covering up, but he was countering too, and he landed a couple good shots.
So that was really fun because it seemed like it could go either way.
Yeah,
and it was really entertaining. But what everybody wants to talk about, right? The controversial ending with the eye poke.
Yeah.
Right. So
the eye poke didn't look bad to me.
It didn't. So let's just address it, right?
Okay.
The elephant in the room is that Todd Duffy is a quitter, right? He quit. Which I'll be completely honest, watching just my initial reaction when I'm watching the fight, I kept thinking to myself, like, are you serious? Like, it didn't look like that bad. And his demeanor, you said it before we started, his body language, it seemed off. You know, it seemed weird. Some people even mentioned the guy had his eye awfully wide open for a guy that just got poked in the eye.
Yeah.
You know? To me, it was weird because usually when you see fighters in that position, you see them like doing everything they can to stay in the fight, right? Like somebody brought up Cowboy versus Tony, where Cowboy's eye is like fucking completely shut, and he's still like, no, I want to fight. And Todd Duffy didn't look like he got poked that bad.
No, as soon as he kept saying he was seeing doubles, that to me seemed like he didn't want to fight anymore.
The first time he said it, I was like,
he doesn't want to fight no more.
Exactly.
And that to me, when you see that and you get that thought in your head, you're going to assume this guy doesn't want to fight no more. He's just going to quit the fight.
Right. So, take it with a grain of salt, right? Because I'm not a fighter. I've never been in his position. But I'd imagine that if you really want to fight and you get poked in the eye, you wait it out. You try to get as much time from the referee as possible and see if something changes, you know? Get like a nut shot. When you get hit in the nuts, you get 5 minutes, right? If it's really that bad, you're going to take 4 minutes and 59 seconds to make sure that you're ready to go. It didn't seem like that's what was happening. It was what seemed to happen is it looked like he thought it was unfair for him to fight with one eye, which is fair, and he was trying to get out of it because he didn't want to fight with one eye.
Okay.
The other thing, and I think I'm wrong on this because I think the medical results would have already came out. There was a shot that he took, and just the way his mouth moved afterward, it looked like he had a broken jaw.
Yeah.
It looked to me like his jaw had broken, and then a couple seconds after that is when he stopped.
Yeah.
So what I was wondering is, I wonder if he did get poked in the eye, but it wasn't that bad. But his jaw was all fucked up, and now he has an excuse to be like, I don't want to finish this fight, right? I think I'm wrong though, because I think that would have came out already if his jaw was broken. But
so what do you think? Do you think he quit or not?
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say yes. I think he did quit. Even though before we started the podcast, I was bringing up a couple of things that were surprising that are counter to that narrative.
Yeah. There's
a couple fights where it came out that he was going through some difficulties within the fight and still fought. There was one fight, I think it was when he fought Russo. He tore his MCL and he had shingles of the eye in that fight, right? Which to me shows that the guy's used to fighting hurt. He's used to fighting through adversity. And there's one other one where I think that he had some sort of injury going into that fight or throughout training camp. That's kind of counter to the narrative that he quit. But based on just the eye test, that's what it looks like. Yeah. Of course, we're not him. We don't know what happened. But
so I don't want to just flat out say he's a quitter.
Of course.
That's a harsh thing to say.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I will say is maybe during that fight he realized maybe the fight game just isn't for him anymore. Maybe that's what he realized, because like you were saying, like you were looking back in his history, trying to justify that particular action. Yeah. But let's be real. We've seen guys break their legs. We've seen guys like Cowboy bleeding like crazy with a swollen eye. We've seen crazy shit, and guys fight through it, right? Because they're animals. Yeah. Maybe he's just not that, and maybe he's realizing it's just not for him anymore. Yeah. Yeah, could be. You know? Maybe he wanted to go in there, put this guy out quick, and when he realized that it wasn't going to happen, he just said, you know what, it's just not for me anymore. Yeah. We don't know. Right. right? I don't want to be super harsh and just say this guy's a quitter, fuck him.
Right.
Because that's the easy thing to do.
Right.
But I can tell you right now, it did rub me the wrong way that he took the easy way out. For whatever reason, we don't know.
Right.
But maybe it's just not for him anymore. Because he's been gone from the game for 4 years.
Yeah.
And the game has changed.
Well, it remains
the fight game has changed.
What happens? A lot of people are hypothesizing that he gets cut because we know Dana doesn't like.
He does not like. Yeah. That's a
shit.
very good point. Very good point.
But here's the thing, though, right? Just to wrap this up, I guess, if all the assumptions that we're making are incorrect, if he still wants to fight, and if he doesn't get cut, then at that point, I want to see him fight again. Because if he comes out the way he did in this fight, how do you not want to watch this guy fight? This guy just comes out and starts fucking throwing to try to end the fight.
Right.
That's exciting shit.
Right, but then what if he gets in that same scenario and does the same thing?
Right. Well, then at that point,
I don't want to see him fight.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't want to see him fight anymore. If that's the reaction he's gonna get after every encounter, whether it's an eye poke or whatever it is, and he wants the easy way out, maybe he just shouldn't fight anymore.
I'm still curious. I'm still in this on this hype train for one more fight. See what he's got.
Okay.
This one's fun to talk about. Tristan Connolly versus Michelle Pereira.
I saw a little bit of it, so I didn't see the whole thing.
So,
but I know about the ruckus about Michael.
There's so much to talk about for both guys. Let's talk about the negative stuff first.
Okay.
Let's talk about Michelle Pereira. And I say negative because if you go on Twitter right now and look up this guy, he's getting nothing but torched.
Right.
Which I'll address why some people are justified in torching him, and then I'll do my due diligence in trying to play devil's advocate here. So he missed weight. Right off the bat, that opens you up to criticism if you're going to miss weight. Right? So there's that. On top of that, a lot of people, it just rubbed them the wrong way. His style, I mean, he took forever on his walkout. He's doing like a coordinated dance and stuff. While he's getting introduced, he's breakdancing in the middle of the octagon. And then we all saw what happened in that first round where he's doing backflips and jumping off the wall and going for flying knees, trying to hit the ceiling with the flying knee. I get it. I mean, I get all that. But I don't think that's strong enough to like hate a guy. I mean, literally just a couple weeks ago, people were stoked about this guy. And now all of a sudden they're like trashing him, right?
Well, they just felt like he's doing a little bit too much. Yeah,
I mean, I can see that, but I also see a guy that is clearly really enjoying himself, right? He gets signed to the UFC. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You know, you don't know how many times you're going to get to make that walk to the octagon. And the guy is clearly super athletic. He's got a background in capoeira. He's clearly really talented with gymnastics and stuff. If you have, I mean, that kind of talent, and if that's the way that you normally always fight, like that's what makes you comfortable, that's how you fight, then, I mean, I guess whatever, you know? The problem is, and to everybody's credit, he's ultimately doing this for our entertainment, right? Personally, it would be way more entertaining for me if he's able to be smarter about his energy and saves the flashy shit for when it's appropriate, instead of just blowing his load in the first round and getting his ass whooped for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, maybe that right there is what pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah, because there's people out there that are flashy, that throw flashy shit. Zabit, Yair, Israel Adesanya throws flashy shit. Anthony Pettis, you know? But the thing is that those things are calculated. They're not just throwing flashy shit just to throw flashy shit, just to spam. Yeah. You know, like when you're playing UFC and you're just spinning shit. You know, it's part of the fight instead of being the fight itself. Yeah. Almost. Yeah. Know? So that's my only criticism, is that I wish he was a little smarter about the way he did things. And I get he was excited, right? But chill, dude. Like, relax a little bit and let's see what happens when you fight a full fight. Yeah. You know? Definitely. That being said, Tristan Connolly, man. Holy moly. What a guy. So this guy is a 155er who gets called up on 5 days' notice to fight this guy who has a hype train behind him, right? It's his first fight in the UFC. It's in a weight division that's not his own. And it's versus this guy that everybody's picking as the favorite and everybody's talking about, right? He did exactly what you're supposed to do in that situation. He didn't care about any of that. He came in. He didn't fall for any of the bullshit, right? He stayed focused, and he took the fight to this guy. The thing to me is like, I think partially the reason why Michel Pereira does all that flashy shit is because it keeps people like guessing. You know, like for example, when people fight Khabib, they know that they have to look for the takedown, so it makes them hesitant. It makes them look what happened to Conor, right?
Yeah.
He was looking for that takedown and he gets popped over the top because he's not focused the way he should be.
Right,
He's got so much to think about. I think it might be the same thing with Michel Pereira, where you don't know if this guy's going to do a backflip onto you or whatever. And Tristan fought exactly the way you're supposed to with a guy like that. If you go back and watch that fight and you look at the guy's eyes, he didn't freak out with any of that stuff. He stayed really patient and he brought the fight to him. And man, was it impressive.
Yeah.
I was impressed with his pace. I was impressed with the way that he used his hands. And I was really impressed by his grappling. He owns a check mat in Vancouver, I think. So obviously his ground game is really good. But man, I loved it. I can't wait to see this guy fight again. And if that's what he does at 170, I'd really like to see what he does at 155.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I some people were calling him douchey or whatever. I really liked his attitude after the fight. He was saying like, man, you took this on 5 days notice or whatever. And he's like, yeah, dude. He's like, give me 6 days. I'll be even better. You know, like I'd love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really see the fight that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd recommend going back and watching it. It's a good fight. Hall versus Shoeface.
That one I didn't see.
You didn't see it?
Nah.
So I mean, I thought it was a pretty even fight, about the way that you would expect it. Shoeface using his grappling to his advantage, and Uriah using his striking to his advantage. Uriah's jab was landing consistently. I think he used it to break his nose early in the first. Here's my only. I like that Uriah Hall, as the older he's gotten, he seems to be fighting a little bit smarter. Kind of similar to what we just said about Michel Pereira. He seems to have gotten a little bit more calculated when it comes to the big movements, when it comes to the spinning stuff, which is good. I like that. He also seemed to do decently against the guy who's really, really good on the ground. So his game is well-rounded. My only issue is he called out Israel Adesanya after the fight, which doesn't make any sense.
Who did?
Uriah Hall.
Oh, yeah, that part I saw.
Like, stylistically, I can see that. But as far as, like, the rankings go and where they are in their careers...
That wouldn't make sense.
Doesn't make
it didn't make any sense.
But it was nice to see Uriah get a win and still be competitive out there. And I think Shoeface was competitive also despite the loss. So
What was that at 170?
Yes. No, 185.
185 middleweight. Yeah, calling out the interim champion when you're at ranked 11th is maybe a overreach. He did mention Derek Brunson. That's a good fight for him.
A good fight.
Yeah, I like that fight for him. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that part I was like, okay, I can see that happening. I would like that to happen.
Yep.
But to call out Israel Adesanya when he's gonna fight Whittaker and you're still way down the rankings.
Right.
It was like he was just trying to reach.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Speaking of blown call-outs, Misha Cirkunov versus Jimmy Crute.
I did see that fight. So I didn't know about Misha. You've mentioned him a couple times in this podcast, and I think you raved about him a little bit. I was very impressed by how he submitted the guy.
Dude, that
very impressed. I've never seen a submission like that.
It was a beauty.
From my time watching MMA, very, very, very impressive.
Yeah, I shot that video to some of my BJJ experts, and the first thing that the first guy that I reached out to, shout out to Eli, said was it's really impressive to get to pull that off in the UFC.
Yeah,
especially versus a guy. I don't know how much you know about Jimmy Crute, but Jimmy Crute's his strength is his jiu-jitsu. He's been training jiu-jitsu for a long time. The dude is no bum on the ground. I mean, if you go back and watch that fight, they both had their moments. Jimmy Crute was doing on the ground. He was doing well on the ground also. However, man, oh man, I'm super impressed with Misha Cirkunov.
Yeah, I am.
So
I want to see him more for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been high on the guy. I'm even higher now though because it seems like he's getting back to his bread and butter.
Okay.
He even admitted it that he started falling in love with his hands a little bit too much. He was trying to stand and trade with people when he maybe shouldn't have. When his strength is, I mean, dude, did you see the way he took Jimmy Crute down?
Yeah.
He did. He took him down with like power.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen
with a force.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen a takedown like that.
Yeah.
So and look at the dude. The dude's jacked. He looks like a bull.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he gets back to his game and starts fighting that way, man, I'd love to see it because
Yeah.
he's so aggressive and so powerful on the ground and clearly super talented because not only was that submission super impressive, the way he got in position for that submission was super impressive too. He had Jimmy Crute on top of him, raining blows down, and executed a beautiful sweep. The sweep was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then he put him in that Peruvian necktie. So, man, if he gets back to his bread and butter, Misha Cirkunov's right in there for me. I'd love to see him fight soon again.
So what do you think about him maybe fighting against Glover?
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting.
Because everyone else at the moment has a fight in that division.
They fought on the same card, and they both came out.
Yep.
Decently healthy.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think that'd be a good fight. He's at 13 now.
Yeah.
And Glover's at 9.
And two guys that are good on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Jimmy Crute too has nothing to hang his head about. I mean, the guy was undefeated going in. I loved his attitude going into the fight. He knew that this was his toughest fight, and he didn't care. He was in there to fight, and he took the loss well. Went in immediately afterwards and raised Misha's hand. I'm still really excited to see Jimmy fight. He showed good things in that fight. He's still on the same trajectory that he was on, in my opinion. This loss doesn't really slow him down.
Yeah.
But the call out afterwards, I feel like Misha totally blew it. I mean,
who is he calling out?
I can't believe I'm criticizing him. And there we go. I was gonna say I can't believe I'm criticizing him, and I forgot who he was calling out. He called out Corey Anderson, which two things. Number one, he already fought him and lost. And number two, he's already booked.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense to call him out.
Yes and no. So no, obviously, because he's booked. But you know how guys are. When you lose to a particular guy, you want to rewrite that wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe that was part of the motivation for him to call him out.
Okay, that's fair.
So I would think I'm just trying to put my mind in his mind and put myself in his shoes. Why would you call him out?
Yeah.
If he lost to the guy, did he lose to him badly? Because I didn't see the fight.
No. But
was it a close fight?
Yeah, it was a pretty good fight.
Okay.
But the thing is that Corey Anderson's fighting Johnny Walker,
for sure, yeah.
Who just
I would say the timing is not there.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well,
but I mean, for a guy that if you lose against somebody and if you felt like you could have beat him, it's still gonna be there for you, right? Like it's still gonna bug you. Like, man, I could have beat him. I want to rewrite that wrong.
Right. Well, what I was gonna say is that Corey Anderson's fighting Johnny Walker. Who sparked Misha.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess if Corey Anderson wins that fight, then that makes a lot of sense. And then real quickly, we'll just touch on the main and the co-main from the prelims, just for the viewers out there to keep an eye out for these guys. Miles Johns, right, who won versus Cole Smith, to me reminds me of a bantamweight Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
The way that he looks, the way that he fights. I liked it. Can't wait to see him fight again. And then Augusto Sakai versus Marcin Tybura. So Augusto Sakai, I love it when guys say that they're going to do something and then they go out and they do just that, because we hear it all the time, right? We hear guys like, "Oh, I'm gonna put the pressure on him. I'm gonna do this," and then they get into a fight and they don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Augusto Sakai came in to this fight and said he said that he was upset at his last fight because he won via split decision. He said he was upset at his performance, and he said that he was coming out. He said, "I'm coming out to finish this guy." He said he vowed to finish this guy.
Yeah.
And what did he do? He came out and starts putting the heat on him and throwing heavy and puts the guy out in the first round. I love that. I love that. The guy showed really good hands, and I can't wait to see where he goes from here.
Awesome.
And then Marcin Tybura, kind of tough for him. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. It's kind of tough. Granted, they were all versus tough opposition, but still, not a good look. And he got absolutely melted in this fight. So that wraps up last weekend's fights.
Okay. And then
what's going on this weekend?
We got UFC Mexico.
Yes.
So we were looking at the card, and me and you kind of agree. Like, there's maybe 2 or 3 fights that we were looking forward to.
Yeah.
I guess we can start off with obviously the main event with Jeremy Stephens and Yair.
Yeah. So I think if I'm gonna get something really wrong this week, it's probably gonna be this fight.
Okay.
So I'll start with my prediction. I just want to preface this by saying that I'm a giant fan of Yair Rodriguez. He's definitely one of my top favorite fighters. I love that dude. However, I'm not excited for him this weekend.
against Stevens. That's a tough fight for him.
Against Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah.
Now, some people have been bringing up some good points, right? Jeremy Stevens has lost a lot of fights.
Mm-hmm.
People clown on Nate Diaz. People have been talking a lot of shit on Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal because they have 11 and 13 losses respectively, I think, somewhere around there. Jeremy Stevens has 16 losses.
Yep, he does. 28 and 16.
Yeah, and I don't think he's ever put together like a really long winning streak. However, here's why I think that this fight is going to play out the way I think it's going to play out. I don't think it's a good matchup for Yair.
Okay.
So the way I look at it, Yair is obviously super talented, right? But their fighting styles, to me, it just favors Jeremy Stevens because Yair is very patient, right? Because he's throwing so much like crazy shit, he's really patient and technical, and he gets aggressive sometimes. He'll throw some leg kicks, but he's not constantly pressuring. He's very patient, and he's kind of reading his opponent throughout the fight instead of just like the first round, like some people do. Well, they'll read him, and then as soon as you get the read, you start throwing. He's kind of like taking reads the whole fight, whereas opposed to Jeremy Stevens is just coming for your head. That's it. Jeremy Stevens is coming to turn your lights off, and that's it. We know that. The guy is violent.
Yeah.
Right? So when it comes to the most recent matchups, you see Jeremy Stevens just fought Zabit, right? And even though he lost, I thought he did pretty well in that fight. And the key to me is that in that third round, it seemed like Zabit was starting to wither a little bit. He was starting to get a little tired, and Jeremy was still coming at him and throwing some heat, right? Also, when it comes to fighting styles, Zabit is similar to Yair. That's why so many people wanted to watch those two dudes fight, is because they fight very similarly. So, in my opinion, Jeremy Stevens has been preparing for the same fight for twice as long as Yair has, because he just prepared for Zabit. He did pretty well, and I'm sure Jeremy is super hungry coming into this fight. So that's why I think it's a bad matchup. I think Jeremy's coming for him. He's coming for his head. He's bringing big power, and Yair is just a little bit too patient and calculated for my taste. I think he puts him out. I think Jeremy Stevens TKOs Yair. I think the only way Yair wins this fight is if one of those really good techniques happens to catch Jeremy.
At what round do you think he'll catch him?
Second or third.
Okay.
However, to Yair's advantage, two things. Number one, the last several fights for Yair, or at least a lot of his last couple of fights, have been 5-rounders.
Okay.
So he's been preparing for that.
Right.
And also, his last fight was in Denver, and this fight is in Mexico City, which are two high elevation cities. Right. So he's coming off back-to-back, or this is his second 5-round elevation fight in a row.
Yeah.
So that...
Yeah, I have a feeling that Jeremy Stevens is going to win this one too.
Yeah.
But I'm going to personally be rooting for Yair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's a younger guy. You know, he seems like his last fight was freaking incredible.
100%.
Especially the way he finished Korean Zombie. So something tells me Jeremy Stevens is going to win just based on his performance against Zabit.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be rooting for Yair to win this one.
Ooh, here's an interesting comparison. I think if Yair wins this fight, it's going to look a lot like Jon Jones versus DC2. I'll explain.
You mean this fight's going to look like that?
Yeah, if Yair wins.
Okay.
I'll explain. So, the most obvious one, statures, right? Yair is the taller, flashier guy, whereas opposed to Jeremy is the smaller pressure guy.
Right.
But the reason I say it'll play out that way is because I think Jeremy will be moving forward consistently, throwing, and arguably maybe winning the fight based on striking. And as he's coming in and pressuring, he gets caught. That's how I think Yair wins if he wins this fight.
Okay.
But I don't think that happens. I think Jeremy Stevens takes this fight, which sucks because I love Yair to death and I don't want to watch him lose. But shout out to Jeremy Stevens because he's been showing a lot of respect to Mexico and the Mexican fans in the lead up to this fight.
Yeah,
I dig that.
That's good. So I think we both are going to be leaning on Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah.
Co-main, so we got Carlos Esparza and Alexa Grasso.
Yeah, I'm excited for this fight. Carla's been in the game for a while. She's a former
champion.
She has. She's a former champion. Good fighter. To me, the interesting part about this is Alexa Grasso.
Yeah.
The young one, the up and comer, and to me, the more improved fighter because they brought her in for a reason, right? She was doing great things outside the UFC, and then they brought her in, and she suffered some adversity. She went through some injuries, some losses, but her last fight to me was super impressive. She fought Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and who's a really tough technical opponent.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She came into this fight well conditioned.
Yeah.
She had good cardio, and she was throwing combinations, and she was taking it to Carolina. I loved it.
Yeah.
I hope she comes out this fight that way in this fight. And if that's the case, I'm taking Alexa Grasso in this fight.
I'm gonna take her too. I've seen her fight maybe twice before, and she won her last one against, what was her name, Carolina?
Yeah, Carolina.
And then I saw a loss before that, if I can't remember. I forgot who she lost to.
Yeah, I don't remember the name either, but it's.
But I was impressed from her performance from her last fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with this being in Mexico, and I'm sure a lot of family members are going to be there,
Oh, yeah.
I think that would motivate her to want to really put on a show.
Yep.
For this particular one. So I have a feeling that Alexa may take this one.
Yep.
What do you think? Do you think this will be a submission from her or a KO, or will it go the whole 3 rounds?
I think she outpoints her and probably
in 3 rounds?
Yeah,
okay.
Probably like a 29-28.
Okay. I'm looking down the list for this card. I mean, the only guy that I personally would recognize is Brandon Moreno.
Okay.
I've only seen one fight from him, but a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
The other people I haven't personally heard of, so I'm not sure if there's a particular fight that you are excited for in this card.
There's a fight that I'm looking at. It's buried in the prelims, but I'm looking forward to Vinicius Moreira versus Paul Craig. In my opinion, I think Dana White's trying to get Paul Craig killed because he's just giving the dude tough fight after tough fight after tough fight after tough fight. Vinicius Moreira is dangerous, man. The guy is cement in his hands. Yeah, I think, and Paul Craig is a wizard on the ground, absolute wizard on the ground. So I think this is a good matchup by the matchmakers because you have an up-and-coming guy who is sparking people and obviously has a lot of power in his hands versus a guy who is incredibly dangerous on the ground. And I think that's kind of what the spirit of the UFC is to see who comes out on top with these matchups, right? So I'm going to pick Vinicius Moreira though.
Okay.
Yeah. If he stays on the ground though, he's gonna get submitted. But I think he ends up catching Paul Craig.
Yeah. What do you think about us maybe doing a fight companion for this particular fight night?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Let us know. You guys want to see that?
Yeah, I think it'll be fun and something new for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this Saturday too, so I think we can. With it being in Mexico, I wonder what time it starts.
Starts
at 5.
I just realized I can't do that.
Oh, you're busy?
I fight night this weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
So are you gonna miss this fight then? This fight card?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can do it. What's the next fight night after this? Where's the pay-per-view? The pay-per-view's not until October.
Yeah, I think the next fight after that is Cannonier versus Hermanson, if I'm not mistaken.
Make sure. Oh, we'll figure it out right now.
Yeah.
But what's the next topic?
All right, so let's talk about some current events.
Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's Jared Cannonier and Jack Hermanson. Yep.
Yeah. So this Thursday, we have a press conference.
Yes, we do.
For the PMF belt.
I wonder if they're gonna unveil that belt for the press conference.
Oh, that'd be sick.
That would be sick.
Because I'm so curious. I'm sure everybody else is too, as to what that's gonna look like.
Yeah.
It better look dope.
I think. I hope so too. What do you think about the new design of this belt? Of the newer belts now, the new championship belts.
I'll be honest.
Do you like it?
I hated it at first.
Oh, but it's growing on you.
It's growing on me.
Okay.
But I still wouldn't say that I like it.
I like the old ones better.
Mm-hmm.
I do like what they're doing. They're putting rubies or diamonds or whatever for each title defense you have, and they decorated for that particular fighter. I like that.
Yeah, I'm a complicated guy. I like the idea, but I'm not super stoked about it either. I mean, I understand
of the rubies of the fight. I like that.
I think it's a cool idea, but I still prefer. I just thought it was awesome the way they used to do it. Every time you win a title fight, you get yourself a belt. Like that's dope. Then you just fucking.
Well, you still get a new. Oh, actually, I don't know how it works.
You get the same belt, and then they add the rubies to it. And I'm pretty sure if you fill up the rubies, then they give you a new belt.
Okay. I like the idea. I think it's pretty cool.
I like the idea, but I think I still prefer the older way.
I think the design of the older belts are fine.
Yeah.
I like that better than the design of the newer belts.
Yeah.
But the ruby thing, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully they unveil the new belt
Yeah, I wonder how this
if it
press
looks pretty
conference
badass.
is going to go out there, because I'm sure everybody's excited for it. It'll be interesting to see what happens though, because they've been fairly respectful to each other so far.
I think there's gonna be shit talking in a respectful way.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think so.
I wonder if there's going to be some respectful like back and forth.
I think there will be. I think these two. I mean, because they don't really like doing press conferences. It seems
no,
like.
they don't. It's going to be.
If there is shit talking, it's gonna be in a respectful like.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be out of because I hate you.
Somebody on MMA Twitter is like, you guys are all excited for this fight. He said, you guys are all excited for this press conference only for these two dudes to show up and like barely talk any shit, and it's gonna be kind of lame. Yeah. And I was like, it'd be kind of funny if it turned out that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm for it. Obviously, anytime you get either of those two guys in front of the fans, it's a good time.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it too.
Okay, so time for Eddie Bravo time, for some conspiracy theory time. Ready?
Oh, I know you're about to lead to.
Yeah. So in a couple in October,
with the Zabit, yeah,
we have UFC Boston, right? And nobody wants to fight Zabit Magomedsharipov. Nobody wants to fight that guy, right? Except for Calvin Kattar, who apparently asked for that fight. He says, "I want to fight him, and I want to fight him in my hometown," which is dope. I love that. Calvin Kattar, in my opinion, is kind of almost in a situation where like Colby Covington was a couple years ago, where he was doing well in fights and nobody's talking about him. Nobody. Like Calvin Kattar is a really good fighter, and he literally broke Ricardo Lamas' jaw in the first round in his last time out. I love the guy's boxing. I love the guy's heart. Nobody's talking about this dude. He's coming up the rankings and nobody's really paying attention. So I love that. I love that he, in order to draw attention to himself, he's not creating a persona or being a dickhead or anything like that. He's like, give me the tough guy. Give me the guy nobody wants to fight. That's awesome. That's an awesome way to go about it. And especially to say, like, I want him in my hometown. I love that. Yeah. So here's the thing. We find out a couple days ago that Zabit pulled out of that fight and breaks everybody's hearts. That sucks. And then they say they reschedule that fight. And you're like, okay, well, this fight was in October. And, I just realized something. Zabit pulled out of that fight for undisclosed reasons.
So it wasn't because he got injured.
It wasn't because he got injured. Okay. It was for undisclosed reasons, which makes this even fishier. Yeah. Because I thought, okay, he pulled out of the fight. He's injured. If he's not good enough to fight, he's probably going to be injured for a month or two, probably 2 or 3 months. Okay. Right? So I'm like, all right, this fight's getting rescheduled. We'll probably get it towards the end of the year. We'll probably maybe even get it on like 244 or 245. And, or I'm sorry, 245, because 244 is before when it got rescheduled. Yeah. Point is, it got rescheduled for Moscow, Russia. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, that is awfully convenient that you're not good to go for Boston. Right. But you're good to go 4 weeks later in Russia. Yeah. It just seemed a little odd to me. And it seems a little more odd to me that he pulled out for undisclosed reasons. Right. But to his credit, right, I was just gassing up Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar said, fuck it, I'll do it anyway. Right. That's dope, dude. Right. I can't wait to see this. Yeah, fight.
I don't know we don't know what the reasons are, so I don't want to like be too judgmental.
Of course, I don't.
But it is interesting. Yeah. When you really read into it. Right. But does it really matter where the location is?
Not really. Yeah. I mean, it really only matters if it's going to a decision, which some people have been bringing up whether or not.
So you think the location influences the judges?
Not, I mean, it doesn't absolutely, but it would be, I'll be honest, man. It would be crazy to say that it doesn't influence at all. We can put this out there.
Yeah,
we
for
can
sure.
Put this out there. It does.
I don't know. I really don't know.
It shouldn't. It definitely shouldn't. Right. But it would be kind of nuts to say that it doesn't. Right. Because there's definitely some, I mean, if you ask anybody, it's just kind of common knowledge. Yeah. You don't want to fight a Brazilian in Brazil. Right. People know that. Last year we had Till versus Wonder Boy, right? And that fight, some people thought Wonder Boy won it, and it was a really close fight, and it was a unanimous decision for Till in his hometown. Yeah. Right? Like, I think it makes a difference. Some people, I'm not saying that if Zabit would have fought in Boston and went to decision that Zabit would have automatically lost. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, that'd be crazy. But I'm saying that it's at least relevant enough to be in a fighter's mind, right? So he was fighting Calvin Kattar in Boston. I'm sure that he thought if it went to decision, he just didn't want to risk it, right? And in Russia, who knows what the judges are going to be like in Russia. Right. So If you're gonna ask me though, like where I'm at, like how much of a difference it makes, I would call it like 80-20, and that's being generous. I would say 20%, like it doesn't matter. 80%. I'm sorry, 20% it matters. 80% it doesn't matter.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like it'd be smaller than that, on my opinion.
Yeah.
I just think it just comes down to the judges and how they look at fights. I don't really.
Which we've discussed earlier.
Yeah, because we've seen weird locations wherever the events are, and we still have seen bad calls.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd feel like it just depends on who's judging it and how they view fights.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, for sure. I think to go back to the original discussion, going into Moscow is a bit interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what played into that, but.
And of course, I'm
just happy that the fight is not canceled.
Yeah, for sure.
So if there's one thing to be happy, it's that it's still happening.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so don't get too Eddie Bravo on me.
Right, yeah. And it got rescheduled for just a month later.
Yeah. Which I can wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Zabit, I'm excited to see him fight. Calvin Kattar, you've hyped him up a lot. You've hyped up a lot of fighters a lot, but this guy a lot lately.
Yep.
So if he can win against Zabit, that's a big statement, and I think that'll put him in a lot of people's minds.
Oh,
that will definitely put me on my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a big fight for him.
Yeah. You brought up a good one. WME going public.
Yes. Yeah. So I read an article, was it like yesterday or another day? Endeavor, is that the name of the owners?
Yeah, Endeavor. Yeah.
They were, I guess, trying to raise money to go public.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
Because if they go public, then there's a change as far as who has control now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so does that change Dana White's position there? Right? Because if now you have a board.
Yep.
And let's say they don't agree with a lot of things Dana does, they can agree to take him out, right?
Yep.
Now that can change everything as far as matchmaking.
Yep.
So I found that very interesting. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it influenced so many things because, like, some of those concerns were raised when they got bought out in the first place because before that, the UFC were completely independent. They were owned by the Fertitta brothers.
Yep.
So now that we're at this, when it transitioned to this stage, there were some of those concerns also, but we all saw, everything stayed the same. Dana stayed in his same position, still doing his thing, still being Dana White on social media and all that kind of stuff. But
I feel like a lot of the things he gets away with now, I don't think would get away with him as a public company.
And to back up that point, there's been a lot of talk, right, about this BMF belt, about it being cheesy and whether or not it should happen. And you have to wonder how much of it has to do with the fact that in the acquisition, they said that pay-per-views were only going to be headlined by title fights now, right? And it seemed like that was the case, like they were trying to abide by that. So to me, I was kind of surprised when they announced that Jorge and Nate were going to headline this pay-per-view, right? I was like, oh, maybe they don't give a fuck then. Maybe they were like, fuck it, like we're the UFC, we do whatever we want. I wonder how much of it has to do with the fact that maybe that's why they're making the belt for this fight.
Right.
So that they can say, like, look, it's for a belt.
Yeah.
You said it had to be for a belt. It's for a belt.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it very interesting about this whole news. I think it'd be pretty cool, though. If they go, Because I was reading through their financial statements, and like that, they have a lot of debt on their hands.
The UFC?
No, the
Endeavor?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
A ton of debt. So that would make sense why they would go public, because they can raise that money to pay off debt.
Yeah. We can only hope though that it doesn't influence it too much, because I mean, if it comes down to an IPO, or I mean, now they're publicly owned, and we have a board, and it comes down to not just Dana White or even just Endeavor, it comes down to other people that have no stake in the UFC or MMA other than financial, then what's gonna stop fucking Conor from fighting every single person, or you know what I mean? Like they're gonna fucking bring in Logan Paul to the UFC to fight for the title.
So that's the thing about going public, is now that you have a lot of stakeholders, all their concern is profits and making money. So you mentioned Conor, right?
Yep.
Anything that's going to make a lot of money for them obviously involve Conor, so that can influence who he fights and this and that. I think it's interesting though for Dana White's perspective, because he says a lot of shit, he talks a lot of shit, he gets away with a lot of things, and I think with a lot of stakeholders, when they see that, they may want to change that. So it's very interesting. I would say keep an eye on the story.
I really wonder what's going on though in Dana's mind, because
I remember he joked about it. He joked about it like, if this company ever went public, that's the end of me. He's mentioned that a couple times.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But then again, I like Dana because like he puts on the fights that we want to see, and I respect the shit out of that.
Yep. I'm sure there's somebody out there with more knowledge of this type of stuff.
Right.
Would love to get some input from you guys.
So just an interesting article that I saw the other day, but yeah.
So last thing on my agenda is Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
So a couple things on Tyron Woodley. So we obviously haven't seen him fight since Kamaru. He was supposed to fight Robbie, hurt his hand, and he's been kind of up in the air now, right? In limbo. Like what's going on with him, right? We threw out whether it'd be smart for him to fight Leon Edwards or not. Mm-hmm. Santiago Ponzinibbio had called him out also. Santiago Ponzinibbio is fighting Robbie Lawler now.
Yep.
But Tyron Woodley said, I really wondered to myself, like, what goes on with Tyron Woodley now? Because he's 37. He got dominated by the champion, right?
He did.
I really wondered, like, what does the rest of his career look like? Does he fight one more fight and get his title shot again and fight? And if he wins that title, does he defend? Like, it's not his fighting style. I mean, he relies so much on explosiveness and power and stuff. And at 170, like, you have to wonder, like, what his age is gonna do to him as a fighter, right? So now he comes out and he says that he wants to fight Kamaru and Colby, which I'm fine with. I'd like to see those fights too. And if those are his last two fights and then he retires, that makes sense. I can see that. But he says he wants Kamaru and Colby, and then he wants to go up to middleweight, which brings up a ton of questions for me. Let's say hypothetically he does fight Kamaru, he wins, and then he like defends against Colby. Is he really already putting it out there that he would win the title, get one title defense, and then book it? I mean, that's not a really great way to sell yourself for a title fight, as GSP.
Well, maybe he wants to be that double champion that everyone seems to be wanting to do lately.
Maybe
that interests him.
Yeah.
Being a 2-division world champion.
And you'd have to wonder, right? Would beating Kamaru and then Colby get him an immediate title shot at middleweight?
It will depend on what the people want.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of buzz for that, I can see the UFC making that fight.
Yeah, it depends on how that middleweight division plays out too.
Yeah.
But this is where you and I were kind of going back and forth before we started this. What would Tyron Woodley look like at middleweight? Right? For a lot of guys not doing that weight cut, and we know Tyron doesn't have an easy time getting down to 170.
Yeah.
What would he look like at middleweight? Me personally, I think it would not look good for him at all. I think in the top 4, I think those are all terrible matches for him. I think Robert Whittaker trashes him. I think Israel Adesanya does. I think Paulo Costa knocks him out in the first round. And if we ever saw him versus Yoel Romero, I don't think that ends very well either. So the only guy that I haven't mentioned that I should have mentioned in those names right there is Kelvin Gastelum, who he has fought before and barely did beat him in a split decision.
Yeah.
And this is a much improved Kelvin Gastelum who's now grown comfortable into the middleweight division. Yeah. So to me, and I hope to God, right, this would be amazing if he proved me wrong, but I don't see a move to middleweight being an interesting decision for him to make. Unless the way that we discussed earlier with Cowboy, it depends on what his goals are. If his goal is to go to middleweight to go fight for a title, then I don't think that plays out well. Yeah. I just outlined that. If he wants to go to middleweight and just fight at middleweight and fight like a fun fight at middleweight, then sick. Yeah. I'm down for it.
I think it's just unfair that you're writing him off.
Okay.
Because we've never seen him at 185.
Okay.
And like, better than anyone. Yeah. Like, MMA is such a crazy sport. Anything happens. Yeah. Right? Like, you were super wrong about this last fight with Glover. Yeah. How do you know if you're not going to be wrong with Woodley?
Because when I was wrong about Glover, it was mostly like a...
He's done.
Like a stylistic
okay
thing. When it comes to Tyron, there's... My reason for picking against Tyron going to middleweight I have more reasons than to pick against Glover in the last fight. I don't know. What do you honestly think? How do you honestly think?
So when you mentioned this to me, I said I don't mind him going to moving up to the higher weight division. Because I like the fact that guys want to challenge themselves.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Like I like that.
Well, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying.
There are tough fights for him. Absolutely. Paula is a tough fight for him. Let's Israel's a tough fight for him. You know what? Actually, out of those 3 guys, I like the matchup with him and Israel. Paula's a nightmare, I think, for him. That guy is a fucking beast. Yorel is a nightmare for him, I feel like. Beast. Kevin Gastelum is a nightmare for him. Beast.
Okay.
Robert Whittaker, I think, would be a very tough matchup for him.
Yep.
Israel would be the only guy where I'd be like, you know what? It's not that bad, so I'll give him a shot.
That's interesting.
But, like, I don't know. It's just like he's such a big guy. Like, he's small as far as height, but he's pretty massive. Like, that guy has, like, if you see his legs are fucking massive.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he hits like a truck.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he kicks like a truck.
Oh, yeah.
If he looked anything like his last fight, then good Lord have mercy on him.
Yeah.
But then, like, we can't just judge him off his last fight.
No.
Maybe that was a bad night for him, right? The fights before that, he's fought a 185er. He's fought Darren Till. And look what he did against Till.
Yeah.
He put him to the ground.
Yeah. And Darren Till's a big guy.
He's a big guy.
Yep, he is.
Big fucking guy.
Yep.
Right? So, like, let's not write him off yet.
Okay.
Let's just see how if he makes the move,
Yeah.
let's give him a chance. Okay, let's see what happens.
Okay.
If he gets starched, then okay.
So from the top 5 guys, you think that he has the best shot versus Israel Adesanya?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I think so, yes.
Interesting. That'd be a fun poll.
The reason I say that is because, like, I look at Paula, like those like even Yorel, those are easily 205 guys.
Yeah, they're
easily
huge.
205.
Yeah.
Like those, like you mentioned it, like I don't know how they're getting past Yosada. I don't know, but those guys are huge. Yeah. And like we were there seeing them live.
Yeah.
Right? Like their heads were way above the cage. Like those are big fucking guys.
Yeah, they are.
You know what I mean? So like those guys are okay. Like that's a tough matchup for him.
Yep.
Israel's such a skinny guy. He kind of reminds me of Michael Venom Page. Like his build.
Oh, okay.
His build.
Yeah.
Right? But Michael Venom Page got caught.
He did.
And I can see the same thing happening to Israel.
Okay.
He got caught. Because he got caught in a couple punches against Kelvin.
Yeah, he did.
Right? And that could have easily took him out.
Kelvin's not much bigger than Tyron.
No.
He's not.
No. And you mentioned that they fought before.
Yeah.
At 170.
Yeah, at 170.
So my thing is, how does Tyron look with the 15 extra pounds?
Okay.
We don't know.
No.
Because at times it can be an advantage for you not having the weight cut.
Yeah.
Right? Especially for bigger guys.
Yep.
Now they have the strength again.
Yep.
So I don't know what he looks like at 185. If he does, it's a great challenge for him, and it'd be interesting to see how he performs at the higher weight division. But I just don't want to write him off quickly. He's a champion. He was a champion. He's had amazing KOs.
Yep.
I can't remember the guy, but the guy with the blonde curly hair.
Oh, Josh Koscheck.
Woo!
Yeah, that was
every time I see that fight, man, what he did to him. Yeah. He put him to sleep. Yeah. But like he's had moments where and even Robbie Lawler when he won the belt, he's had moments where he put guys to sleep. So I think we owe it to him to at least give him some form of respect to see, okay, let's give him a chance. Let's not write him off too quickly.
No. And to his credit, you said about Kamaru, right, that he
it could have been a bad night because he looked so untiring.
I think it's more likely than not that it was a bad night. You know, he said it, right? He said it, but of course a fighter's going to say that he had a bad night after he lost.
Right.
But I think just looking at him, I think it's almost undeniable that something just wasn't
exactly. Because like when you look at that fight and then you look at the previous one with Till, two completely fighters for me. Yeah. Right? He didn't look motivated. He was just getting pinned to the cage and dominated by Usman. Yeah. And
he didn't. Yeah. It was weird.
It was very weird. Yeah. Very weird. And I wonder if it was just a bad night. If something happened mentally for him, it just wasn't there. Because I don't know.
Because and of course this is just pure speculation. But like we talk about the deer in the headlights look that people get when they fight Khabib, right? Mm-hmm. To me, like when a fighter looks like that, they're freaking out because they're like, "What the fuck do I do? Because I want to win this fight."
Right.
Right. Like, how do I get myself out of the situation to win this fight?
I think it's more credit to Usman because he put him, like he took him away of his comfort zone.
Yeah. To me, the look that Tyron had wasn't like, oh, what do I do? How do I get out of this to win this fight? It was like, fuck.
Yeah. It was going to be a long night for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, we'll see, man. If he wins the belt and he wants to move up to 185, by all means, go for it.
Yeah.
I would not tell him not to. Go for
it. It
it.
would be interesting to see if he makes a transition this late into his career and starts using his wrestling a bit more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But, I mean, he has fought someone who would technically be considered a 185er.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see what happens. I do want to talk about this Conor and Khabib thing, about how MMA Twitter believes that Conor will never get a shot at Khabib at a rematch. And we were looking at the comments from our last episode, and one particular guy was saying, like, 0 chance.
Right.
So I want to get your thoughts on it, and what do you think about Twitter bashing Conor so much?
I see where people are coming from. I think, I'm not on the fence about this. If I'm going to lean one way, I'm going to lean towards Conor does get a rematch.
Okay.
I totally see where people are coming from, though. I just happen to disagree with them. I think the reason people don't think that he's going to get a rematch is for a couple of reasons, I'd imagine. I'd imagine it's because they either think that, A, he's just never going to fight again.
Right.
2, if he fights again, he either loses or doesn't have a strong enough case for the title shot.
Okay.
Or 3, and this is where I think is the most likely thing, is that Khabib fights enough times and decides to retire before giving Conor another shot.
I see that happening. I see him walking away from the sport.
Which, Khabib is a super respectful guy, and he feels insanely disrespected by Conor, right? Which is why he doesn't care for him at all. So I can see that Khabib, just out of principle, wouldn't want to give him a rematch. But the casual fan in me would say, are you really gonna run away from Conor?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to say run away in the sense that he's afraid that he's gonna get killed by Conor, but run away in the sense of you already smashed him once, right? I'm sure you're confident as hell that you can smash him again.
Yeah.
Just give us that fight one more time.
Yeah.
Right. And for those of you out there saying why would you want to see that fight again? Conor's gonna get smashed again. Well, if that's gonna happen, let's see if that's the way it plays out again. If you're super confident he gets smashed again. And you obviously hate Conor. Are you
obviously hate Conor.
Are you really telling me that you're not gonna enjoy another opportunity to see him get smashed again?
And so people that say that, we've seen it in boxing, how people get knocked out from the first fight, and they come right back and give a better performance and even win in the second fight.
Right.
So I think people saying, "Oh, he smashed him already," you obviously don't like him,
right?
And you're a bit biased against him,
right? Well, I mean, you can objectively look at that fight, though, and say that it did not go well for him.
It did not, but we also have to understand that the guy's been away for 2 years.
Yes.
That does play into it.
It does?
So if he comes back and remains active, then, give him the shot. If he beats Poirier and he beats Gaethje and he jumps right up to the number 1 contender and Khabib is still the champion, give him the shot, bro. So I don't understand.
Put it this way. If Conor does not get another title shot, I think the most likely scenario is because Khabib just does not want to give it to him, and he's done fighting and he retires. Yeah,
so that and that brings him another question. So let's say Conor comes back and wins another fight or 2. Let's just say 2 fights, right? He comes back and wins 2 fights. Let's say he beats either
Dustin and Justin.
Yeah, so either one of those guys, and then he beats Cowboy. Let's just make something up.
Yeah.
And then he is now the number 1 contender, right? And let's say Khabib already beat Tony.
Yeah.
Now you have this clash of maybe he doesn't want to fight him anymore.
Right.
So you have one guy saying, I'm sure it's Khabib's team saying he doesn't want to fight him. And then obviously the UFC is like, no, he's the next in line. You have to fight him.
Yeah.
What does Khabib do next?
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think the UFC is going to give Khabib another fight other than who's next in line, which is Conor.
If Khabib beats Tony, right, I'm sure he's going to continue to ask for that GSP fight, right? Which is not super unlikely. GSP came out and said that Tony fights next for the Tony is next in line, right? So if that's the way it works out, if he fights Tony next, which please let him fight Tony next.
I hope so too.
I'm sure he's going to clamor for that GSP fight. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it does happen, right? Then at that point, because Khabib himself has said he's only got a couple fights left. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's mentioned something about the number 30. He wants 30 fights. His dad has also said he wants 30 fights and he can retire after that, right? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he's got 2 fights left, right? Because this is number 28. The last one was number 28. So we know number 29 is Tony. It comes down to who's number 30.
The only way, so here's my opinion on this. he's not gonna fight GSP. Like, get over that.
Okay.
If he fights GSP, it's gonna be a non-title fight.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now.
That'd be sick.
The UFC, particularly Dana White, is not gonna allow Khabib to fight GSP for a title fight.
Right.
I'm telling you guys, like, get over it.
Yep.
It's not gonna happen.
Well,
He already shaded Dana White. Apparently,
you got to tell Ali Abdelaziz that.
It's not gonna happen, bro. Get over it. There's no way Dana's gonna accept a fight with GSP, knowing that he's one and done.
Right. And he's literally said it. Like,
he said it. I'm not.
It.
Yeah. So I don't see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if let's say Tony wins,
Mm-hmm.
and then Khabib still wants to fight GSP,
Mm-hmm.
that's a non-title fight. I see that happening. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. Yes. But I don't think it makes sense for the title, especially for a guy that wants to come back for one fight and then be gone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, I don't. Those damn trains, bro.
It was gonna happen.
I'm gonna put like a train emoji on the fucking screen so people know it's a train.
It was gonna happen eventually. Train time.
Where were we at? Conor,
Khabib. Rematch.
Khabib. It depends on if Conor wins. If Conor comes back and wins, I think the rematch is gonna happen because it makes sense business wise.
Now, if let's say hypothetically we get Justin versus Conor and Justin wins, then I think
Justin's the guy that's gonna face the winner between Khabib and Tony.
So it would go Khabib fights Tony. If he beats Tony and Justin beats Conor, I think Khabib fights Justin and then he calls it a day.
Yeah. So you think he's done after 2 fights?
Yeah, I really hope not.
Yeah.
I really hope not.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Because here's the thing, he says it's all about legacy, which it is. And he wants to call himself the Floyd Mayweather of MMA. And I know the sports are different. I know they are, and it's not the same. But Floyd Mayweather
Yeah.
went 50-0 and fought until he was 40.
Yeah, it's true.
And he's 30 years old and
That's
fighting
true.
until 30 and fighting until 30 fights. So
Yeah. But you can't really compare that.
no, that's
Because the sports are MMA is so much more brutal.
Oh yeah.
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 So.
But to me, like, if he wants to talk about legacy and stuff, and right now the jarring position is who's the number 1 pound fighter in the world? Is it Jon Jones or is it Khabib? Right.
It's really a toss up.
And to me, like, if it's all about legacy and stuff, the knock on Khabib was that he hadn't fought like a lot of top tier competition, right? And then he finally won the belt from Al Iaquinta, and then he defends once against Conor.
Yeah.
Defends against Dustin, and then he's gonna get 2 more title defenses, like 4 title defenses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that's decent. But to me, like, when you're talking about legacy, like, you look at Jon Jones and you look at how many world championships he has.
Well,
like,
I was gonna ask you.
or
So
Demetrius Johnson, how many title defenses he has?
I was gonna ask you. So right now, Jon Jones is number 1 pound for pound.
Yeah.
Khabib number 2.
Yeah.
People are making an argument that Khabib should be number 1.
Yeah.
Do you think that Khabib?
I'm on the fence for these 2 reasons. I think, and maybe this is why there's always argument about the pound rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do they matter? What do they really mean? I think if you're talking about, I think Jon Jones is the number 1 pound fighter if you're talking about like longevity and his resume, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Jon Jones has beat more high quality names than Khabib has.
Yes, he has.
However, if we're talking about like just plain like skill and stuff, like, how can you deny the absolute dominance of Khabib?
Mm-hmm.
And if it comes down to it, right, the pound for pound rankings, what they're supposed to mean, I guess, is if all things are considered equal, right? If there's no weight classes, no disparity in sizes, if everybody hypothetically was the exact same size and the exact same weight, who would win?
Mm-hmm.
I think Khabib beats Jon Jones.
Yeah. So you think Khabib should be number 1?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Jon Jones.
Yeah. Well,
I like Jon Jones at number 1, just because how long he's done it, and he's literally wiped out the entire division.
Yeah.
So
of 2 different generations.
Yes.
And is trying to
which
do it,
is
and
insane.
And is trying to continue to do it.
Yeah. And in my opinion, Jon Jones is the GOAT.
Yeah.
Like, if you'd ask me who you think the greatest MMA fighter is of all time, Jon Jones to me is, because of his resume and how long he's been doing it.
I feel like we just publicly called Jon Jones the GOAT, and people are throwing virtual tomatoes at us right now.
I can care less, bro. I was telling you, like, I was making posts on Twitter with our Twitter account, and all this fucking hate on Twitter.
Yep.
It just it like reassured to me why I don't have a Twitter account
Yeah.
because of that.
Right.
It's like too much negativity.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, that's not for me. I'm staying far away from that.
Right.
Now I know I have to make posts either way,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna put that on you. You make the post.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I think Jon Jones is number one of all time because of the resume and the guys he's beating.
Right.
And Khabib's on his way there.
Right.
If he keeps beating these great fighters, he's definitely on his way there.
I mean, obviously, it comes down to. I wish I could find a better word for fear, but like a better word than fear. But to me, him retiring that early, I wonder how much of it has to do with him just not wanting to take that kind of punishment, or whether it's the fear.
Well, to be fair, like the guy now, he made $6 million on his last fight, right? Yeah. So I think like he's at the point in his career now where he's making all his money. He doesn't need to fight anymore for money. He's probably realizing that. Yeah.
But well, I mean, to his credit though, right? I wonder if it's because he doesn't want to take that kind of damage, later in his career, because he doesn't really take that much damage.
Or he's achieved what he already wanted to achieve. I mean, we don't know.
But to me, like if you're that good, and that young, why don't you just reign over the 155-pound division for the next 5 years?
Hey, getting hit in the face is a tough job.
It is.
That me and you don't understand it.
We do not. No.
So.
But I mean. Somebody put, that famous picture of the last opponents of Tony Ferguson, and they're all fucked up. Yeah. Well, somebody did something recently kind of similar, which was Khabib's face after his last several fights.
Are all clean.
He's pristine after every single fight.
I don't know, man. We really don't know what his motivation is, but I don't want to use something against him.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This that's just the selfish fan in me.
For sure.
Yeah.
I do want to reply to one comment.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull it up, but a guy particularly.
On what?
Remember that comment I showed you on the phone? How a guy was debating on Tony and Khabib and how that fight will look like. Yeah. And I have to pull it up, but he was saying like he didn't agree with my outlook as far as putting pressure on Khabib. Okay. Like he didn't think that would be a key. I think that's what he mentioned, but I'll read it real quick.
So you just want to clarify your position?
That too, and then get your opinion on it, so we can kind of counter argument against that, because I like this. I like when people comment on our posts. Yep. Whether they agree with it or disagree, it's fine. Like we don't really care. Yep. All we care about is creating a community of discussion, because that's what we love. Yeah, absolutely. We like to talk about this. Yeah. I mean, neither are we right or wrong. Right. We just give our opinions and how we see it, and that's it. But I wanted to at least give our opinions on this, and I'm trying to pull it up real quick. Oh, did he delete it? Because I don't see it no more. There's no way he did. Sorry, guys.
Maybe he saw the light.
No, he's still there. Okay, so this is what he said, and I'll post it on the podcast so people can read along. So he said, by the way, Conor will never get a rematch with Khabib. Me and you disagreed. It just depends on the circumstances. Of course. To say that he will never get a title shot, come on. Right. It just depends on the circumstances and what the UFC wants to do. Right. So it just depends.
Also, to be fair, some people use phrases like that, but they really mean something else, right? Like he might have meant that
it's highly unlikely. Yeah. Okay, I can see your point.
The way that people say like, oh, he does that all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When he obviously doesn't do it all of the time.
He also mentioned Tony don't like pressure too, so saying Tony will pressure Khabib is going to break Khabib is ridiculous. So just to clarify, I never said that it was going to break him. Okay. All I said was that the key to beating Khabib, I feel like, is pressuring him to make him feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Because we've never seen Khabib feel uncomfortable, and I don't think I've ever seen Khabib be pressured like that. I mean, have you?
No. So I mean.
The Michael Johnson fight, he was never pressured. He was never pressured against the Conor fight, the Dustin Poirier fight.
It's not like people are unwilling to engage with him, of course. I mean, if you look at the way Dustin came out in the second round, he came out and he was trying to be first in those engages.
But it wasn't like when me and you think of pressure, like the way Tony does it, that's what we're alluding to.
Like
in
Justin
your face,
like Justin Gaethje and Tony, where they aren't backing up. They're trying to continue.
They're charging you forward. That's the pressure.
Back up against the cage.
I've never seen that against Khabib. I haven't.
I think it's because people are just too worried about the takedown.
Exactly. And I mentioned that I felt like a lot of people are very cautious when they fight Khabib.
Yep.
And I felt like, okay, well, we've seen it already in 3 fights already.
Yep.
Right? But people being cautious. Well, what if you pressure him?
Yep.
What if you get him to feel uncomfortable? How will that look like? I don't know.
Right.
But I want to see that outcome.
Right.
And that was one reason why I felt like that played into Tony's strength.
Mm-hmm.
He also said Khabib in every fight gets pressured in round 1. I disagree with that. I haven't seen him get pressured. Against the Conor fight in round 1, they were standing toe-to-toe, but there was no forward movement on Conor.
Right.
Obviously, that didn't happen against Poirier.
Right.
And I don't think it happened against Michael Johnson.
Right. And then even to further clarify, I mean, at least the way I think about pressure is it's constant. Because when that fight, was it the first or second round? I think it was the first round where Conor pushed forward with like an attack, like a combination, and he ended up, I think he threw a head kick or it was like a flying knee, but it was up against the cage, and he like went up and like threw it, and Khabib was able to escape out, right? So that would be considered technically pressure, right? Because he was throwing multiple strikes and moving forward, but after that, it became the regular fight again. So it was just like a small sequence instead of like constant.
Right. I agree. To finish off his comment, he did mention Tony, on the other hand, never gets pressured, and Khabib will pressure him like never before.
Okay. So I think he's right on the fact that Khabib will pressure him.
I think so too.
Like
I think, yeah.
In all honesty, with his entire comment, the thing that I disagree with the most is, if I'm not mistaken, he said that that Tony doesn't like pressure, right?
Yes, Tony. He said Tony on the other hand never gets pressured.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah, which I'm trying to think of his last fights. He definitely didn't get pressured that much against Cowboy, Anthony Pettis. I don't think so, but I guess it just depends on how you view pressure.
Yeah, I guess.
Right?
So.
Are you viewing pressure, like you mentioned, a constant presence of moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you viewing it, or just pressure on the ground?
The way that I view pressure is, like, you know when like a fight starts and the two fighters get to the middle of the octagon and they're clearly reading each other, where it's like they almost like both of them, they're getting reads on each other, but they're like almost hesitant to engage, right? Or like even in or like they're like taking turns exchanging, almost, like, right? They get in each other's faces, they're reading each other, they'll exchange a couple times and then they're back, and then they read each other and then they exchange. To me, pressure is like constantly wanting to walk forward and not being too content with just standing there.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like a punch, and then like a step forward, and
exactly.
then trading, and then getting hit.
And we see that all the time in a lot of fights.
Yeah.
And it's very noticeable.
And again, and it needs to be clear that that's your style of fighting,
right?
And that's how you're gonna fight the whole fight.
Exactly.
The whole fight.
Exactly.
You know?
I think he's right in the sense that Tony has never felt pressured like the way Khabib does it on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with.
Yep.
But I just don't see Khabib pressuring them when they're on their feet, when they're standing.
I do actually.
I don't see it happening.
I think Khabib,
and like I mentioned to you, if it happens, I think it is a mistake for.
I think Khabib fights Tony the same way that he fights everybody else.
He stands up for a little bit and then takes him to the ground.
Oh, I as far as like the pressure goes, because Khabib is a pressure fighter. Khabib wants to convince you that he's content to stand.
Yeah, and then shoot for the takedown.
And while he's doing it, he's pressuring you, right, in the stand game, so it makes you comfortable, like backing up, and then as soon as, like, before you know it, you're back up against the cage, and that's when he takes you down.
Yeah. I mean, who knows, man?
Think about it. If Khabib didn't pressure anybody and he was just content to just stand in the middle, he would never get himself in the position that he wants to be in, which is getting his opponent up against back up against the cage.
Yeah.
So in order for him to put himself in his strongest position,
that makes sense. Yeah.
He has to. Move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just like the same reasons as our last podcast, when I look at this fight, I see everything that Tony has in his abilities, and I really like him in this fight.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna still reiterate my prediction. Because we're gonna go in depth before if this fight ever gets announced. But
and I know it might be a little bit early, right? But I don't see anybody in the lightweight division that I'm not considering. But to me, and I think it's just coincidental that it's the next. Yeah. It's the next two guys, but if it's not Tony and if it's not Justin, nobody's beating Khabib.
I mean, you can make an argument. I mean, anything can happen. Khabib can have a bad day. because he's a human too.
Yeah.
But he just looks so dominant. It's hard to go against him. So I just wanted to clarify his comment. But thank you for commenting. I appreciate that.
No, to the same guy though, I want to say that he said that
he said great unbiased analysis, something that is rare these days in the MMA media. Remember to always play devil's advocate. Thank you so much for that comment.
Yeah, we appreciate that a lot because I mean
we weren't trying to bash you. Like that's not what we do.
We appreciate that. But I appreciate that comment a lot because you said it right at the beginning of the podcast. You jump on MMA Twitter and it's nothing but he's a tool. He's this. He's that. Fuck that guy. I can't wait to see his head get knocked off. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, and at times you play into that too. For sure. But I always try to reiterate. It's like we try to stay open-minded as much as we can. Yeah. We don't want to get influenced by what everyone else is saying, right? We give our own opinions how we see it.
We're human. We dislike certain fighters. We dislike.
That we were talking about Kobe. Yeah. Like I don't like him how he's portrayed himself personally, but I can't deny the fact that he fucking looks incredible from that last fight.
Like to me, it's important that when we're talking about what happened, or what's going to happen inside the octagon, that personal feelings and personalities and stuff like that don't play.
Exactly.
I mean, they're not in there fighting with their personalities. They're in there fighting with their skill sets.
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about. What do those skill sets look like?
Yeah. A lot of people get, what's the word I'm looking for? They get caught up in the antics away from the octagon. Right. That it influences their, what they think and how they say things. And I think you want to always keep an open mind at all times.
That's the way you have the most productive conversations.
Exactly. I think that's it. I mean, there was some nice comments in our last video. We almost hit 250, so we really appreciate that as we're continuing to grow this. And we got a lot of ideas of videos that we want to do. Like we want to do a fight companion pretty soon. Yep. It's been something that we've been talking about and trying to figure out how to put together. So
yeah. So thanks for tuning in, you guys. We really appreciate it. Hope to continue connecting with more and more of you.
Yep.
We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.